Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. This week, joining us from beautiful and sunny, I can see in the background, Germany, is Thorben Pantring. Hey, Thorben, welcome to the show.
Hi, Vasco. Grateful to be here. Thank you very much.
It is fall in Europe. We're in the Northern Hemisphere, so it's getting colder and darker, but there's still some sunlight. That's good to see.
That's my background lamp.
Yeah, but there is light coming from the window, right?
Yeah, it's not utterly dark. That's true. Yes.
Yeah. So Thorben is an experienced Scrum Master and team lead in the e-commerce space. He showcases expertise in leadership, LESS, the scaling framework, Scrum, team management, and engineering. He's got an insatiable desire for learning and relentless pursuit of progress. Relentless is a word we don't use often enough here on the podcast. I think we should use that more often. Thorben embodies a fervent passion for leadership, agility, and technology. And we're going to explore all about that this week with Thorben. But first, Thorben, tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
Yeah, thank you, Vasco, for having me again. And I'm working in the e-commerce sector for like over 5 years now. And when I joined with my current employer, I was assigned to a Scrum team as an engineer back then, and I got in touch with the Scrum framework and working with Scrum in the first place, and I was like immediately hooked. So I was very intrigued. I was very curious about how this framework works because before then I only ever worked with classical waterfall systems. And 6 months later, I attended the regular Scrum training course to become basically a Scrum Master, and then my journey basically began. And I journeyed from full-time developer to full-time Scrum Master in a product department. And at the time I became the first full-time Scrum Master at my employer, I was actually the first one to take up the Scrum flag full-time. Yeah, that's how I ended up in the Scrum space.
And of course, there's a lot of things that drive us into this role of Scrum Master. For some of us, it's a calling. For others, it's an accident, just like you described. Many of us have experience in the technology world, but of course, there's a lot of Scrum Masters out there who don't even have that. And that's perfectly fine because, of course, Scrum Mastering is a lot more than working with technology. Technology knowledge helps, but it isn't the only thing we need. Now, I don't know if the story you're going to tell us next is about some of those, beginner mistakes, as we all do. Everyone is a beginner at some point. Otherwise, they would never get to be experts. But tell us that story, though, Thorben, the story of a difficult moment you had as a Scrum Master.
Yeah, I have quite the journey to tell, actually. It was a difficult but a rewarding journey, which spans over a couple of years. About 3 years ago, when I became kind of the full-time Scrum Master in the product department, our team hit a breaking point. So our Scrum adoption kind of came to a grinding halt because the team just got too big. So we had 20 to 25.
How big was it? 20 to 25. All right, that people, is big.
Yeah, so 20 to 25 people on a single team, and every Scrum event just took way too long to feel effective, and everybody felt and knew it. And so we had some ideas of how we can ease the pain here, and then we just simply split the team into 3 separate teams with their own events and own Scrum of Scrum events to keep things synchronized and stuff like that. However, this of course made the one product owner and me, the one Scrum Master, the absolute bottleneck in the whole framework and scenario.
How did that bottlenecking show up? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Of course. We basically, the product owner and I were busy either preparing or attending 3 Scrum events. So we had 3 dailies, we had 3 retros, we had 3 reviews, and we had 3 plannings. So
did you at that time kind of consider like having someone else doing the Scrum Master and product owner for the 3 different teams when you broke up the big team, or was it that there was just no one available? Like how was it going at that time?
Yeah, at that time, there was really literally no one available. And it was quite a quick fix. So we didn't spend that much thought on it and just went for it. And then later on noticed the pain points, basically, that product owner and Scrum Master were bottlenecks. And we tried some things with like having only a Scrum of Scrum daily where the product owner and the Scrum Master attend to see how things are going and stuff like that. But nothing really worked out. And at that time, that was the first time we learned that scaling Scrum is actually very, very difficult and can be very, very complex. And it doesn't help that we are a one product company. So everybody is working on the same code base, and then you have to distribute them to different teams. And that doesn't make things easier. So after a few months with this bottleneck approach, we tried something else again. And we split into product areas. So we cut our e-commerce product into different product parts, basically. And then was the time.
So was that done like from an architecture perspective, or did you more think like from a team perspective? How did you do that separation of the product?
It was rather a customer perspective. The checkout itself became a whole product area, where one team was dedicated to the whole checkout process and orders and everything that's attached. So one could say more customer focused and architecture focused. And then we had this idea of giving each area a whole Scrum team, like own product owner, own Scrum Master, own developer team. And that worked out quite well, or at least it eased a lot of the pain points we had before. But of course, that wasn't without its drawbacks as well. So, for example, we noticed pretty early on that every team was busy working on their top priorities in their product area, which of course aren't necessarily the company's highest priorities. So we had teams. So
it was kind of the teams thought they were doing their best, but because they couldn't see the higher picture, or the higher level picture rather, then they couldn't see that they were actually working on something that made sense for them, but not for the overall company.
Yes. The team did their best, absolutely, without a doubt. But they didn't know or knew what was more important in other lanes, other areas, basically, because how could they? And so it was basically one of the biggest pain points, that we didn't have this one backlog approach. Every area kind of developed their own backlog, and that was like the biggest drawback we had from that. And this was actually the time where your recent guest, Konstantin Ribel, came to help us.
Oh, we'll definitely put the link on the show notes, because he also talks about how to help teams, or actually organizations, to scale Scrum in that series of episodes. So I'll definitely put the link to that. So tell us then more. So you noticed the priority problem. You got help from an experienced consultant. How did that move forward?
Basically, together with Konstantin, we had this idea to dive deeper into this large-scale Scrum approach. And Konstantin gave a very, very helpful certified less practitioner workshop with management from the company. So like everybody was involved, all the Scrum Masters, all the product owners. Few from top upper management were involved, and that really helped to kickstart the whole adoption. And together with him, we did a whole system thinking approach to figure out what are the screws and knobs we have to adjust to get better at working with multiple teams on a single product. And he helped us very much to get into this less large-scale Scrum thinking approach. And actually, we ended up working with 4 teams on one single product initiative for our B2B capabilities, and that worked out pretty well.
Absolutely. And that's quite a story of success, obviously. So we've already talked about some of the key, lessons that you shared, right? Like the idea that scaling Scrum is a lot harder than it looks like at first. Don't try to go for 3 teams with 1 Scrum Master and 1 product owner. That's way too much. I've seen that happening before, so I can totally agree with that. Then also training leadership, right? Like Scrum Masters, team leads, leads, product owners, train them on what is expected from them. I think that makes perfect sense. Is there some other key lesson you think you should share with the audience that is maybe perhaps just now dealing with this, let's say, circumstance of having to work with multiple teams?
Yeah. So what I can tell, what I learned definitely is you have to accept that this is difficult, and maybe you want to try different things. You have try to make it as safe to try as possible. Like when we started out with this large-scale Scrum approach, we didn't start with 4 teams. We started basically with 1, and then another, and then another, and then another. So adding on top incrementally, like in product, works in management or Scrum as well. So trying different kind of changes, experiments in one team, seeing how they pan out, and if they work out well, try them at another team, and then just things kind of spin up on their own.
Absolutely. And that also makes it a lot easier to try new things, because of course it's a lot easier to try things with 1 or 2 teams than it is to try with 4 or 5 immediately from the start.
Yes. And it's easier to get management involved if you need to get permission for something like that.
Absolutely. Well, a great story. Thank you for sharing that, Thorben. Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests help their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.